Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more history matters, and this time we are asking the question, why did South Africa give up its nukes? A short animated documentary. I don't really have a guess. I feel like we've watched a video about this before, but I cannot remember what was talked about. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. Would love to join the Discord. Follow me over at Twitch. And please do go check out the two gaming channels here on YouTube. One is edited content, and then the other is for the stream VODs. Yada yada yada. Let's answer this question. Why did South Africa give up their nukes?
South Africa is the only nation in history to unilaterally disarm its own nuclear weapons. Others have relinquished theirs, like Ukraine did, but those were Soviet weapons they inherited and not their own home-developed ones. Given that no other nation has ever developed such powerful weapons and then just decided they didn't want them anymore, this raises the question, why did South Africa...
Is it... part of me doesn't think it's because they didn't want them anymore. It's certainly a good deterrent. Hold on. Well, maybe they were isolated from global affairs for having nukes, and people were like, "No, you got to give them up, and then we'll deal with." No, that doesn't.
give up its nukes. So first of all, a bit of background on South Africa. By the 1970s, South Africa's global position was complicated. The country was run by its white minority and its government introduced a social system known as apartheid, which means separation. This system restricted the black majority's freedoms in the country. These policies towards the black majority in South Africa meant that its relations with its neighbouring countries weren't exactly great, with the sole exception of Rhodesia, obviously. As for its broader international relations, these changed over time. Its relationship with the USSR and the communist world was always terrible, whereas its relations with the USA and the UK were pretty good in the 1960s, but as time went on, they soured. Early on, the US also had laws which enforced segregation, but when these laws were repealed, it became increasingly less acceptable to maintain good diplomatic relations with South Africa, and by the 1970s, South Africa was largely isolated.
Okay. It's partial. Okay, is it actually the isolation that made them give up their nukes? But that doesn't really make sense. Why give up your nukes if the solution is to give up apartheid? There's no way giving up the nukes is what allowed them to get back in the good graces of the West. Oh, well, good graces. It's just popular opinion. Get back into the popular opinion of Western people.
Things were made worse when Portugal, who had been covertly supportive of South Africa, withdrew from its African colonies, leaving it even more isolated. And it was this isolation which led to South Africa developing
Taiwan, Chile, Israel, Rhodesia.
its own nuclear weapons, although it took a long time for the government to come to this conclusion. Its thinking was that if its survival were to be threatened, then none in the international community would help it. Thus, the only surefire way of guaranteeing that the current South Africa would see tomorrow was to build a nuclear arsenal, the mere existence of which would deter aggressors. So, South Africa had had its own nuclear program since 1948, but this was devoted to nuclear energy and making economic use of the country's abundant uranium deposits. In 1965, with the help of the USA, it commissioned its first nuclear reactor. And in 1970, Prime Minister John Vorster authorised the creation of a uranium
Make it more uranium-y?
enrichment facility. Although he stressed that this would only be for peaceful purposes, exactly 0 people believed him. In the late 1970s, events to the north in Angola changed government policy. You see, Angola was undergoing a civil war, which had seen the intervention of Cuban forces, which were in turn backed by the USSR. South Africa saw this as a direct threat to its very existence. And so this was when Prime Minister Peter Botha pushed to develop nuclear weapons. South Africa's first nuclear weapon was finished in November 1979. So by 1989, South Africa had 7 nuclear
Warning, Splody boy.
bombs of about the same sophistication and yield as the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. An election in the same year saw Frederick de Klerk elected as president, and his priorities were to end South Africa's international isolation, which would be done via internal reforms. To be blunt, apartheid's days were numbered, and it was his job to make sure the transition away from it wasn't too civil war-y. This transition would then bring South Africa back into the international community, which was more important now that the Cold War was over. You see, prior to this, the West could tolerate apartheid South Africa because it was fiercely anti-communist, but now the Warsaw Pact was dead, the leverage was gone. There was also one other reason. You see, with tensions running high, the white minority was worried about what the next majority-chosen government would.
Oh, they gave it up because of racism. We can't have anything in this world, man. Come on. Yeah. They would. How do you get to the conclusion? Oh my god. Like, I don't know, maybe just don't treat people like shit. Like, you're afraid you treated them so poorly that you think a logical future is that they will then turn around once they have power and nuke you? What the? How can you treat other people that bad? What the fuck?
Would look like. To simplify further, the white minority didn't trust a black government with nuclear weapons and so got rid of them. With this inevitable change coming, de Klerk felt
That is so fucking stupid.
that rehabilitating South Africa would be easier if its nuclear weapon program was ended. And in 1990, he did just that, and within a year, all 7 weapons had been decommissioned. 2 years later, he announced to the world that South Africa had previously had nuclear weapons, but had also gotten rid of them. South Africa had just made history. I hope you enjoyed this.
And that was why South Africa gave up its nukes, a short animated documentary by History Matters. I should have known. I should have known that it came down to racism. My God. This was a good episode. I like the amount of. This was another one of those where they were able to fit in a lot of information. Unlike the last episode, it didn't feel like they were repeating info. This one felt more of what, I kind of expect from History Matters. So this was very, very good. I have nothing else to add here at the end after that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.